Well, despite what the score might indicate, and it ain't pretty, the Baltimore Ravens beat the Seattle Seahawks 37-3, the worst defeat they've had in 6 years since that Rams game in 2017. And that may speak to how well Pete Carroll has coached this team overall. Despite what the score might show, the defense didn't actually play that bad. And just hear me out on this one. This game was 0-0 in the second quarter. This game was 7-0 Ravens basically at halftime with 2.5 minutes left in the second quarter. And that's because the Seahawks got 2 turnovers in the first half. Boye Mafe had a strip sack, forced the fumble, recovered the fumble, and then Trey Brown forced Odell to fumble it again, and it was recovered by Bobby Wagner. And the Seahawks front four was getting pressure the entire first half. You're playing against a guy like Lamar Jackson, who basically, you can see in this game, threw for a measly 187, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, but ran for 60 yards. He dinks and he dunks. That's his game. He didn't beat you. What did beat you is them running for 300 yards and you running for 30. So the Ravens outran the Seahawks 10-1. They had 10 times more running yards than the Seahawks did. But going back to my initial point, this game got out of hand because Geno Smith and the offensive line could produce nothing. Nothing. And I'm going to sound like a broken record again, but this is at least the third game in a row where I'm saying it's on Geno Smith. It's on Geno Smith. And actually, if you want to go back, even some of the games we were winning, like the Giants game, Geno Smith did not play well. And what we're starting to discover collectively as Seahawks supporters is that while Geno has a little bit of greatness in him, it is just a small quantity. And if you break down his starting record over the past 2 years, you would maybe see less than 50% of the games that he is displaying greatness. Maybe 45, maybe 40, whatever the number you want to assign to it, percentage-wise. And the rest of the games, what's going on? Is this really like a quarterback that you can really, really invest in? Because after that Bucs game last year, what did they really do? What did they really do? They barely squeaked into the playoffs because the Lions beat the Packers at Lambeau and then got crushed by the Niners in the playoffs, opening the first game of the playoffs. And this year, it's been mostly the defense that's been winning these games. 11 sacks against the Giants, just playing as an amazing cohesive unit, allowing only 17 points to the Bengals, which we see now is a force to be reckoned with. A team that beat the Bills and beat the Niners and and in a bad way. I mean, the the Bengals are on a tear. Man. Um, okay, let's break this down. I want to start by talking about the defense because that's the Seahawks defense is a little bit more interesting to me about how their day went. So I mentioned to you some of the big points in this one was 0-0 in the second quarter, was 7-0 basically at halftime. And then, when you see that your offense is doing nothing, I mean, the Seahawks got those 3 points, I believe, in the second quarter, didn't score the rest of the game. And Geno Smith is turning the ball over. Geno, a Lamar-like overthrow that resulted in this interception that, like, what the heck are you, who are you throwing to? I mean, this was maybe it was 10 yards ahead of Lockett, I think. Not only that, but Geno lost a fumble as well. Not only that, and I know I said I was going to talk about the defense, but Geno also threw 2 more pickable balls. One of them should have been a pick six, and I feel like this is the third game or fourth game in a row I'm saying Geno got away with the cornerback dropping what could have been a pick six. But I say this to get to the point of the Seahawks were giving the ball away to the Ravens and giving them good field position, which is why they were able to put up what turned out to be 17 points in the first half. I mean, you're not doing your defense any favors by giving up the ball like that. And this was mostly a game, and I'm going to say it again, the score belies the actual story of this game because a lot of these points were scored in pseudo garbage time. And I know what that is supposed to mean is like the losing team is scoring points, but no. This is when the second team offense was out there. I think they scored 14 or 17 points. The Ravens did to. I mean, this is basically 23. This is the score of this game should be 20-3, really. Maybe 23-3, whatever. But man, the Seahawks defense was good in the first half. I mean, anyone that watched this game knows the front four were getting pressure. If it was anybody other than Lamar, there would have been plenty more sacks. Boye Mafe, he got the only sack of the game. He caused a fumble. He recovered it. But they were getting pressure. They were getting through that line, which is a good offensive line. And it was just Lamar Jackson being evasive. The middle of the field, Bobby Wagner, Jordan Brooks, they're going to get their tackles, but they're just too slow. They're too slow to stop Lamar. They're too slow to stop, all these running backs. Gus Edwards, Justice Hill, Keaton Mitchell for sure. I mean, Keaton Mitchell, was this the first game he's ever played? He's a rookie. He ran 9 times, 138 yards and a touchdown. That guy is super fast. He was way outrunning guys. I mean, I rarely see somebody that outruns defensive backs to the point where the screen can't even show both of them. Like the camera can't even zoom out fast enough to show both of them. I saw it with guys like Saquon Barkley and Travis Etienne when they were in college, and I saw a little bit of that with Keaton Mitchell. But don't be fooled. This happened late in the second half. In the first half, the Seahawks defense was playing well. I mean, Bobby is older. He's not as fast. He wasn't able to catch up with some of these guys. Jordan Brooks, a little bit of the same, although he was on the other side of the field where most of the running yards were happening. Bobby had less than double-digit tackles, which is rare for him. Jordan Brooks had just 11. But when you see guys like Tariq Woolen Quandre Diggs and Devon Witherspoon being, top 6 in tackles here. They combined for 18 tackles. That tells you what you need to know, which is it's a combination of the Ravens' offensive line or our defensive line not being good at run defense, even though I thought they were pretty good at in the pass rush, and them just straight up running past Bobby Wagner and Jordan Brooks. I mean, there wasn't even any broken tackles because they couldn't even reach them to try to tackle them. And the people that I saw that were missing tackles were Trey Brown and Devon Witherspoon, who are known to be big tacklers, but they go for just the big tackle. It doesn't seem that they are very sound in tackling. And this is something I noticed as well yesterday in the UW-USC game, that if I'm a defensive coach, I would rather teach my players, instead of making that diving tackle for loss, where you're looking to just tackle the guy at the line of scrimmage or have him lose a yard or whatever, make the tackle sound and make sure that he only gets that 2-yard gain. Because when you're diving at somebody like that and you don't have a sure tackle, then they're so much more likely to break it. I mean, at that point when you're diving at them, they're maybe like 75, 80% likely to break your tackle. But when you're right there and you have a form tackle and your objective is to get him down and you play defense, I mean, how much does that percentage go up? I mean, it's probably up to, you're reversing. You're probably 80% likely to make the tackle. And of course, I know defensive backs are typically meant to be the players that are covering receivers. And whatever, you can't expect them to, these are, of course, physical runners. Gus Edwards and a speedster like Keaton Mitchell. Justice Hill as well had a pretty good game. Lamar Jackson, who's slippery, but really he's getting his yards, evading on the outside, and Bobby can't catch him. Jordan Brooks can't catch him. So, they're just like kind of leaky yards. He doesn't really break tackles. But Lamar is not a good traditional quarterback, okay? I was looking at this game closely, ready to eat my words about Lamar and say, okay, if he proves this against my team, who has a good defense, I'll say it. But I'm going to show you this again. 187 yards, 0 touchdowns. He ran for 10 times, got 60 yards. And somebody was showing me the odds for the MVP, and this guy is like third in the MVP voting right now. For what? For what? They scored 37 points. Your team scores 37 points. You have 187 yards passing and 0 TDs, and you lose a fumble. I mean, that's a net negative. And for a guy that's just known as a running quarterback, 10 rushes for 60 yards, that's just bang average. So I say this to say there were 3 phases of this game for the Seahawks defense. One was the entire first half where they played well. They turned the ball over twice. They allowed basically just 7 points. And the other points were because of the Seahawks' offensive turnovers, and that's it. The second phase of the game, which is the very end of the second quarter and the third quarter, was field goals. By the best kicker possibly in history, in Justin Tucker. So they weren't allowing touchdowns. And by the time this game got to the fourth quarter, the damn offense only still had 3 points. And the second unit was out there. The second defensive unit was out there. They started pulling players from the first unit, and that's where Keaton Mitchell and Gus Edwards just started running over our second unit and scored, I think 14 points. So don't blame this on the defense, okay? I know you're going to see this 298 yards rushing. I understand that, and that's not good. But you have to contextualize it here because a lot of those yards did come in the fourth quarter, late in the third and the fourth quarter, where some of our starters were out of the game. And I have to give a shout out to Quandre Diggs and Julian Love. I haven't mentioned them yet, but they made some big tackles in this one, and Lamar wasn't completing anything downfield. So as defensive backs, your job to cover the big play, they did that. Against a bad quarterback, but they did it. Okay, on to the real issue with this team. And that is Geno Smith and the offensive line. Now, the offensive line is banged up. I saw Forsyth and Haynes and Lewis. I think we have a lot of backups playing at this point, essentially. So there is some excuse to that. However, Geno Smith is your guy. Geno Smith is your quarterback. Quarterback is the most important position on the field. And Geno isn't doing enough. Geno was not making plays. Yes, there were some plays where the pass rush was coming, but it was not as bad as some people will make you think. Watch every single offensive snap in this one. There were some snaps where he wasn't getting the full 3 seconds, but there were some snaps that he was and more. I would say about more of the snaps he was getting at least 3 seconds. And you have to be able to be mobile and get out of the pocket, and he wasn't doing that. Use your mobility. You're either going to be an exceptional passer of the ball that gets the ball out quick and has that great QB acumen that's going to be immobile like a Tom Brady or Peyton Manning or of that elk. I'm not saying be that good, but of that elk. Or you're going to be mobile and evasive and be able to move out of the pocket and go from there. But Geno is neither. And we're starting to really, really see that in the grind of the week-to-week Seahawks here. And Seahawks are 5-3 despite Geno. If the defense wasn't as good as it has been playing over the past 5 weeks or so, this team is below 500 or at 500. You have great weapons, and you saw them today. Jaxon Smith-Njigba, he did have a drop, but he had some great catches today, and he's really showing himself as a great receiver. DK Metcalf, just one catch for 50 yards, and he did most of that after the catch. Tyler Lockett, 3 for 32, barely felt like he was out there. And Jake Bobo, I didn't see him at all in this game. Was he injured? No giving the ball to Jake Bobo. And I have to give some blame as well to the running backs here. Ken Walker, 9 carries, 16 yards. Zach Charbonnet, 4 carries, 8 yards. I don't know whether that's more a product of the offensive line or the running backs. I don't know. Maybe this will change when the offensive line comes back. Maybe I'm overreacting a little bit. I don't know. Maybe it is the offensive line. Maybe it is. But as it is, unless we have a stellar offensive line, I guess this team's just not going to do much. That's what it comes down to, because we don't have a quarterback that's able to overcome not our starting five in the offensive line. Other than that, Mark Andrews did what he usually does: 9 catches, 80 yards. Odell Beckham, he was a squeaky wheel from last game. They got him a touchdown on his birthday at the expense of Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers only 1 target for 11 yards, 1 catch for 11 yards. Rashad Bateman, 3 catches, 28 yards. Listen, I mean, if you're like a Ravens fan watching this game, I don't think Lamar is going to win you a championship. Okay, I think your forte, as it has been for decades, is your defense, which is a good defense. And listen, I'm not going to. Of course, it takes both, right? So Geno played terribly, but it also is it's a good defense, and your running game, which you just seem to have schemes for. But in my opinion, you are similarly winning despite Lamar. And I know you're going to see the 7-2 record here, but I've watched a lot of Ravens games, and you know what I'm talking about when you see Lamar try to throw the ball more than 10 yards, what it looks like. I don't need to tell you that. Okay. I haven't watched any other reviews of this game or any of the press conferences because I didn't want to be influenced by that. I just wanted to just share my thoughts about it. The Washington Commanders are up next for the Seahawks. I believe the Seahawks will be at home, even though this would make sense for them to just play at Washington since they're already here. This has to be a get-right game for you, despite how demoralizing this game is, and it is demoralizing given the score, 37-3, worst loss in 6 years. This has to be a game where the offense shows the defense that they are on their level. And that's crazy for me to say because I only really believed that 10 years ago. And that's when we had beast mode, which Ken Walker is not, which Charbonnet is not, which combined they are not. But that's what needs to happen. Offensive line needs to just work on fundamentals, work with Geno, and Geno, you need to level up. You have not only plateaued, but you are looking as though you are regressing. So that's what you need to work on in practice. You need to get right. You need to soundly defeat the Washington Commanders. And be ready for the games that come after it, which are the Niners, the Cowboys, the Eagles. I was going to say the Rams, but the Rams look to be in shambles. But they always give you issues. And I think you're playing at LA or in Seattle, I'm not sure. But all right, let's bring this to a close. If you are watching on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe. I mentioned this before. We're at almost 80,000 views on the page, but only, you can check out the subscribers. It's not even close. If you're listening on via podcast, go ahead and follow us on there. Give us a good rating. And I want to remind everyone we're also on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Just look for Football v Football. All right. Expecting better things for next week because I know the ceiling of this team, or I know that this is not the ceiling of the team. This is not the real team. I mean, the defense is a good defense. We have identified that it is Geno and possibly the offensive line. Okay. Till next week, have a fantastic day, football fans.